people making between 50 and 100K cite as the #1 reason for leaving they cannot afford.
Hey, Don.
The average price of a home in California just hit $800,000.
Oh,
That is
yeah, all right. I got a couple of T-shirts.
My brother made it.
He made it. That's good for him. Man, that's great.
Leo Hanian is a professor of econ at UCLA, frequent guest on my radio show. He tells me because of laws like CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, the average price of a home in California is 50% more than it would be if it weren't for laws like CEQA. One of the many things I'm going to do when I become governor is declare a public emergency on housing so I can unleash hundreds of thousands of units all ready to go, all held up because of fear of lawsuits by CEQA. I know that CNN is here, so I'm going to speak slowly. No, Larry Elder is not anti-vax. I've been vaccinated. Because of my age, because of underlying comorbidities, my doctor strongly advised me to be vaccinated. But a lot of people have made very different decisions. After all, didn't Kamala Harris, who I understand is here on behalf of trying to salvage Gavin Newsom, and didn't Joe Biden, both of them say, if Donald Trump told me to take the vaccine, I'm not going to take it? Well, maybe some people are following their advice. I don't know. And after all, under Operation Warp Speed, this vaccine was approved on an emergency basis in about 11 months. The average time it takes for a vaccine to be approved is 5 years. So a lot of people think it was too soon. Then other people have already contracted the coronavirus, and doctors tell me when you've contracted the coronavirus, you have an immunity that's even stronger than the vaccine. I don't know.
Yes, yes. True.
And then there's this. I was at a campaign stop in Palm Desert, and I pull up to a coffee shop, go in, and I noticed that half the wait staff was wearing a face mask, and half was not. A young lady waited on me, very charming, and I said, what's the policy in this store? She said, well, my boss allows us to wear face masks if we want to, and not wear one if we don't. I said, you've been vaccinated? She said, no. I said, may I ask why? She said, you can ask, but I don't have to give you a reason why. I choose not to. America? Are we still America? Didn't Thomas Jefferson warn about trading freedom for public safety? Now, my opponent, Gavin Newsom, has demanded that all state workers who've not been vaccinated be tested once a week and wear a face mask at work. Now think about it. I thought the whole point behind getting a vaccine is that you're protected from the coronavirus and you're protected against people who have not been vaccinated, and if you've not been vaccinated, you've made the decision to assume the risk. So someone who's made the decision to assume the risk is going to be required to wear a face mask, protect himself or herself against somebody else who's also assumed the risk. And I'm anti-science? Doesn't make any sense. Now, I don't drink coffee, but before I have my first cup of tea, to the extent that those mandates are still in effect, I'm going to repeal them. So we've got rising crime, we've got rising homelessness, we have the outrageous cost of living in California. For the first 21 months of this year, more businesses have left California than left all of last year. And the rate at which businesses are leaving is twice the rate at which businesses have left the previous 3 years. When businesses leave, they cite 3 things: high cost of living, taxes, and regulation. We have the highest state income tax in the country, 12.3%. And for people who don't care about the top 1%, let me tell you something. The state income tax is the largest revenue stream for California. Pay for our roads, our schools, our health care, other things. Largest revenue stream. Of all the 40 million people in California, the top 1% pay half of all the state income taxes. So when you see a millionaire or a billionaire leave California, I just want to remind you what my father used to always tell me. Larry, I ain't never got a job from a poor person. Development Department has lost $30 billion. It's B as in bodacious. And the money was supposed to go for people who are out of work because of the way this governor slammed down the state. So while 11 million Californians were waiting for their unemployment checks, $30 billion were stolen by people in San Quentin applying for unemployment benefits and for crooks in Nigeria applying for California unemployment benefits. How can that possibly happen except for incompetence and mismanagement? We have 5 seasons out here in California now. The 5th one, of course, is fire season. Because of the way our forests have been mismanaged, the fires are more severe, more deadly than they should be. Outgoing Governor Jerry Brown had a plan to clear away 500,000 acres of fallen trees and dry vegetation. And my opponent, Gavin Newsom, bragged that he cleared 90,000 acres. Except he didn't. He only cleared 13% of what he said. Even if he had cleared 90,000, it would have been a drop in the bucket. And we claim we don't have the resources to do that. We have resources for a $100 billion bullet train that goes nowhere to nowhere.
Yeah, he's got a flying Navy hat on.
And we have the resources to give $30 billion to crooks in Nigeria.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, maybe he did.
I don't know if you know this, but we're having a water shortage here in California.
But I think typically,
We have not added
through
to
a
our
Newsom
water
gal
infrastructure
thing
in
with the-
48
What?
years when
If you went to
state
the other
was half its
side's
size.
rally,
What have these guys been doing?
No.
You get the
Oh,
shit
yeah,
kicked
And
out
it's
of
right.
it's not that we don't know that we need it.
Yeah.
people across
We
the
passed
street
bond
would kick the
measure
shit out
after
of you.
bond measure after bond measure for more reservoirs, to raise dams, to build underground storage so that when you have the wet years, we do have them, they can
I
prepare us
rode
for the
my
dry years.
motorcycle here.
One of the many things I'm going to do is
got around the
declare a
corner.
statewide emergency
I was
on water.
going to,
I'm going to unleash these projects that have been sitting there for decades.
suit
We
up.
have water.
Changed the mind. Oh, yeah.
There is,
So you didn't ride it. You
there
did.
is a
Because
desert country
I was dealing with
in the
my
Middle East
irrigation
known
and
as
it was
Israel.
already 3:30 when it was time.
Because of
Had to go.
desalination, they are now water self-sufficient. There's a little body of water next to Israel called the Mediterranean.
Parking ramp.
We have a little body of water
As
next
long
to
as
us
you're there
called
less
the
than
Pacific
90
Ocean. We
minutes,
can't
it's
figure this
fine.
out. Rolling brownouts? How can we have rolling brownouts with all these brilliant people in Silicon Valley? Rolling brownouts? Because so many of our utility companies are pressured to spend tens of billions of dollars for weather-dependent, unreliable so-called renewables like wind and solar. We've had a war against oil and gas, a war against drilling. Rolling brownouts? Mismanagement? Incompetence? And I know that for a lot of people, nuclear is a 4-letter word, but let me tell you something. We love France. We love Japan. Guess where they get the bulk of their energy? Nuclear. We only have one nuclear power plant left, that's now Diablo. That's going to be decommissioned in a few years. San Onofre was decommissioned a few years ago. And we once got between 8 and 10% of our power from nuclear. But now because of the environmental stranglehold they have over people like Gavin Newsom and Sacramento, there's been a war on nuclear. Just as there's been a war on timber, a war on oil and gas, a war on the middle class, a war on the working class, which is why, as I said, for the first time, people are leaving the state. We're going to turn that around. Now, the reason they are calling this being led by the blackface and white supremacy is because they are scared to death. That's why Kamala Harris has weighed in. That's why Joe Biden has weighed in. That's why Elizabeth Warren cut a commercial for him. Notice one thing about all these surrogates he's brought in to keep his job. Not a single one of them has said, Gavin Newsom has done a good job for California. Not a single one. They're all saying that this is a Republican takeover. The other day I was on CNN, and again, I know CNN is here, so I'm going to speak slowly. I was on CNN. I was on the Michael Schmakanis show, and he referred to me as a Trump Republican. You know, I'm a Republican. I haven't voted for a Democrat since 1976. That was Jimmy Carter, and I regret that. They don't call me a George W. Bush Republican. They don't call me a George Herbert Walker Bush Republican. They don't call me a Mitt Romney Republican. They call me a Trump Republican because they feel that somehow, if you call it a Trump Republican, the people, independents and Democrats who signed that petition won't pull the lever for yes on recall, won't pull the lever for Larry Elder. It's insulting. 63% of Hispanics voted for this man 2 years ago. The majority of Hispanics now want him out. Are they Trump Republicans? It's insulting. The majority of independents voted for him 2 years ago. Now the majority of independents want him out. Are they Trump Republicans? It's insulting. It's insulting to you. What they're telling you is don't pay attention to crime. Don't pay attention to rising homelessness. Don't pay attention to the way this man shut down the state while ignoring science, while his own kids were enjoying in-person education. Don't pay attention to the crappy education that urban students are getting K through 12. Don't pay attention to his water mismanagement, fire mismanagement, rolling brownouts. Let's just call this a Trump Republican and scare the bejesus out of people. It's insulting, and it tells you what they think of you. Now,
Larry.
I want to say something about critical race theory, if I may. Thank you. I'm talking to a black reporter, and I can tell he's not feeling me because, after all, I'm black. I have an R at the end of my name. Therefore, I'm an Uncle Tom. I'm a sellout. I'm a bootlegger. And he said, "You don't believe there's systemic racism?" I said, "No, I don't. I mean, do I believe that there are racists in America? Come on. This is a country with 350 million people, 8% of whom believe Elvis is still alive. 6% believe if you send him a letter, he will get it. I don't know what to tell you." I said, "Well, let's have a little mind experiment, shall we? I said, work with me here. Take out your magic wand. Spread it over America. Wave it over America, okay? Remove every smidgen of racism from the hearts of white America. Now, everybody in America who is white thinks like Mother Teresa, okay? I said, do we still have the phenomenon that 70% of black children enter the world without a father married to the mother? And by the way, that number was 25% in 1965, when Lyndon Johnson launched the so-called war on poverty. Barack Obama said, Barack Obama said, a kid raised without a father is 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. Do we still have the phenomenon, I said to this young man, where 70% of black children enter the world without a father married to the mother? Do we still have the phenomenon where the number one cause of preventable death for young white men is accidents, like car accidents or drownings, whereas the number one cause of preventable death for young black men is homicide, almost always at the hands of another young black man? Do we still have the phenomenon, I said to him, where out of the 15,000 annual homicides in America, half of the victims are black, almost all killed by other blacks? Do we still have the phenomenon where a young black man is 8 times more likely to be murdered than a young white man? So I said, if the answer to that series of questions is yes, then I submit to you that systemic racism is not the problem, and critical race theory and reparations are not the answer. Knock it off! Knock it off! Knock it off! Racism has never been less significant in America, and it is a defamation to say otherwise. In 2007, a young senator named Barack Obama was competing against the frontrunner Hillary Clinton for the nomination on the Democratic side. A Mormon named Mitt Romney was competing against a man named John McCain on the Republican side. So Gallup decided to find out which of these 4 candidates had the biggest hurdle. Gallup asked, what percentage of Americans would never vote for a black person for president? 5%. What percentage would never vote for a female for president? 11%. What percentage would never vote for a Mormon, referring to Mitt Romney? 24%. What percentage would never vote for a man who would be as old as John McCain would have been had he won the election, which would have been 72? 42%. So Obama had a lower hurdle than these white politicians did. Knock it off! Knock it off! Now, again, since I know CNN is here, so I'm going to speak slowly. There was a big gap from the time I was on CNN recently into the time I was on before that, almost 4 or 5 years. And the reason I believe is because I was on the Don Lemon Show, and we're talking about racism. We're talking about racism. And I said, Don, you know, in 1997, which would have been 24 years ago, in 1997, your organization, CNN, teamed up with Time Magazine to ask black teenagers and white teenagers about racism. I could tell he didn't know it. It was the front cover story in Time Magazine. And Time asked black teens and white teens if racism is a major problem in America. Not too surprisingly, both said yes. But then they did this. Time and CNN asked black teenagers, is racism a big problem, a small problem, or no problem in your own daily life? 89% of black teens called racism a small problem or no problem in their own daily life. In fact, more black teens and white teens, this is verbatim, more black teens and white teens said, and I'm quoting, failure to take advantage of available opportunities is a bigger problem than racism, end of quote. Knock it off. Knock it off. My father came to California in 1945 because he'd come here as a Pullman porter before the war and decided maybe someday I'll relocate to California. He came here with barely 2 nickels to rub together, 8th grade dropout education, cleaned toilets, 2 full-time jobs cleaning toilets, saved up his nickels and dimes, started a little cafe in an area of LA known as Pico Union, then and now a heavily Hispanic area. And he got into the middle class. And my father, a lifelong Republican, always told my brothers and me the following: hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. He told my brothers and me, Larry, you cannot control the outcome, but you are 100% in control of the effort. And before you complain about what somebody did to you or said to you, go to the nearest mirror, look at it and say, what could I have done to change the outcome? And finally, my father told my brothers and me this: no matter how hard you work, how good you are, sooner or later, bad things are going to happen. How you deal with those bad things will tell your mother and me if we raised a man. And this is a recall election against Gavin Newsom, not against Democrats. But I do want to tell you what my Republican dad always said about Democrats. He said, Democrats want to give you something for nothing. And when you try and get something for nothing, you almost always end up getting nothing for something. Knock it off. Hard work wins. Barack Obama got a higher percentage of the white vote than John Kerry did 4 years earlier. Knock it off. Knock it off. You're dividing us. And when I get up here to Sacramento, I'm going to unite us. Finally, a couple things. I know it's hot. I want to make sure that I'm respectful of your discomfort out there. But the last time I was in Santa Barbara, I was there with my girlfriend. We were there on business. And we're getting ready to get on the 101 to get back to Los Angeles. So I get out the cart, this gas station. As I'm getting out, I heard somebody with a deep male voice go, hey!
Are you leaving?
Want a banana?
I'm glad you showed up, man. All right, good
So I
job.
look up, trying to assess the situation. I'm from the hood. And there's a white guy standing next to an SUV. His trunk is open, and he's got a big basket of bananas in there. And he's not talking to me, he's talking to a white homeless guy who's just a few yards away from him, fishing for